The crowd had barely gathered, phones raised and cameras recording when it happened. Just one sharp crack echoing in the humid summer air. Time seemed to slow as a woman's hand connected with the side of a police officer's face. The slap was fierce, raw with fury, yet fleeting. In an instant, the officer's stunned expression and the woman's tear-streaked face were captured on every screen, streaming live across social media feeds. The headline was instant and explosive. "She slaps a cop in rage, shocking moment." Goes viral. No one in the crowd could forget the sound, the sharp slap, the gasp that followed. Some shouted for order. Others stayed frozen, caught between shock and curiosity. The woman, shoulders trembling, was quickly restrained by officers, but the damage was done. The video spread like wildfire. For Emma Harper, that moment was not an act of defiance or rebellion. It was the climax of months of suffocating pain, heartbreak, and frustration. She didn't expect her slap to become a viral sensation, nor did she imagine how it would open a floodgate of public scrutiny and inner turmoil. Emma had always been a quiet soul, one who believed in justice and fairness. She worked as a nurse in a small community hospital, dedicating her life to helping others. But beneath her calm exterior lay a well of grief she had tried to bury. 6 months earlier, her younger brother Marcus had been fatally shot during a police encounter, a routine traffic stop gone wrong. The officer involved was placed on administrative leave, and the investigation dragged on with agonizing slowness. Emma had spent countless nights awake, replaying every detail, searching for answers that never came. That afternoon, the community gathered for a peaceful protest demanding accountability. Emma attended, hoping to stand in solidarity and find some measure of healing. But the protest was tense. Police lined the streets, their faces unreadable behind helmets and shields. Emma's heart pounded, memories crashing in with every chant, every raised fist. When the officers moved to clear the crowd, pushing people back, Emma found herself face to face with one officer, Officer Daniels, who was part of the unit that had detained her brother. His cold eyes met hers, and in that moment something inside her snapped. The rage she had swallowed for so long exploded outward. She slapped him. It wasn't just a slap. It was a raw cry of grief and anger, a demand for acknowledgement. But the world didn't see the layers behind that moment. Instead, social media was ablaze with hashtags and heated debates, opinions and accusations flying like wildfire. Some saw Emma as a villain, others as a symbol of resistance. As she sat handcuffed in the back of the patrol car, the weight of the viral storm pressing down on her, Emma felt herself unraveling. She wasn't just fighting for her brother anymore. She was fighting to be heard, to be seen, to reclaim her own story from the chaos. The night stretched on with no comfort, only the distant echo of sirens and the relentless buzz of notifications. On her silent phone, in the harsh glow of the flashing police lights, Emma knew her life would never be the same. The slap had changed everything, and now she had to face the consequences, both public and deeply personal. The cold metal bench inside the holding cell pressed against Emma's back, unforgiving and unyielding, much like the emotions roiling inside her. The din of the police station faded into a dull hum, drowned out by the relentless storm in her mind. The viral video, flashing across every screen, replayed in her thoughts like a relentless loop. She remembered the moment the slap landed. It had been pure instinct, an eruption of everything she'd held inside for months. But what no one saw was the pain that had driven her there, the history behind the fury. Emma's brother Marcus had been more than just family. He was her anchor, her protector during the hardest parts of their childhood. Growing up in a neighborhood where mistrust ran deep, Marcus had always tried to shield Emma from the harshness around them. He was kind, funny, and full of dreams that stretched beyond the streets they called home. The night Marcus died was etched into her memory like a nightmare she couldn't wake from. A routine traffic stop, one that should have ended quietly, turned deadly. Officer Daniels had pulled Marcus over for a minor equipment violation. What happened next was a blur of shouting, confusion, and the sound of gunfire. Emma had been told it was self-defense, that Marcus had resisted arrest, but the bruises on his arms, the unanswered questions about the timeline, and the silence from the police department told a different story. The investigation was slow, bogged down by red tape and half-truths. No charges had been filed. No apologies had been made. Her grief transformed into a quiet rage, simmering beneath the surface. Every news report, every social media post blaming Marcus for his own death felt like salt poured into a fresh wound. Emma felt isolated, watching as the world chose sides, often against her brother's memory. When the community protest was announced, she saw it as a chance, not just to demand justice, but to stand with others who understood the pain of losing someone to the system. She hoped to find healing in solidarity, but that hope quickly crumbled. Officer Daniels was there, standing rigid and unyielding behind his shield of authority. When their eyes met, Emma saw no remorse, only the coldness of a man who refused to see the harm he'd caused. In that moment, years of anger, helplessness, and sorrow exploded. The slap was a release. Not just a strike on the officer's cheek, but a scream from the depths of a broken heart. Now, as Emma sat alone, the weight of her actions settled heavily. The viral clip had been shared millions of times by morning, dissected, criticized, and debated. Strangers online called her reckless, a troublemaker, even violent. Others called her a hero, a voice for the silenced. But Emma wasn't ready for any of it. Her phone buzzed with messages, some from friends offering support, others from news outlets seeking interviews. The police department had issued a statement, condemning her behavior and announcing charges of assault. She felt trapped in a spotlight she hadn't asked for. Her lawyer had warned her about the consequences, about how the justice system often didn't see the human behind the headlines. Emma knew the road ahead would be long and painful, but there was something else gnawing at her. A fragile hope that maybe, just maybe, this moment could ignite change. Through the whirlwind of legal battles and social media storms, Emma resolved to tell her story, not just the slap, but the truth behind it. Because beneath the viral moment was a woman grappling with loss, a community demanding justice, and a society forced to confront the complex realities of grief and authority. Slap was only the beginning. The morning after the video went viral, Emma woke to a flood of notifications, messages, and news alerts blinking like warning lights across her phone. The story had exploded overnight. Countless shares, retweets, and comments, many laced with judgment and misinformation. The headline screamed, "Woman assaults police officer during protest facing charges." But the headlines didn't tell the whole story. They never did. Her phone vibrated again. This time it was her mother's number. Emma's hands shook as she answered, bracing herself. "Emma." Her mother's voice cracked with a mixture of fear and sadness. "I saw what happened. I'm worried about you. We need to be careful." Emma swallowed the lump in her throat. The viral outrage had spread beyond strangers online. It was seeping into her family, her friends, her quiet world. People who didn't understand the pain behind the slap only saw the act itself. Over the next few days, Emma's life became a whirlwind of legal meetings and media calls. Her attorney, Marcus Reed, was a steady presence, a man who understood the power of narrative and the limits of the justice system. "Emma," Marcus said during one meeting, his voice firm but kind, "you have to prepare for the courtroom, to try and paint you as the aggressor. They'll focus on that slap and ignore everything else." She nodded, the weight of the fight settling deeper in her bones. Meanwhile, Officer Daniels remained on administrative leave, his silence fueling rumors and further anger in the community. Many saw Emma's slap as a spark for a larger reckoning, a symbol of frustration with systemic injustices. Protesters rallied behind her, while critics called for harsh punishment. The media frenzy only intensified when the police department released body cam footage from the night Marcus was killed. The grainy video raised more questions than answers. Quick movements, unclear commands, and moments that suggested Marcus was confused and scared rather than aggressive. Emma watched the footage alone in her apartment, tears streaming down her face. The video didn't erase the loss, but it made the pain feel painfully real and public. The city was divided, conversations exploding on talk shows and social platforms about accountability, race, and policing. Amid the chaos, Emma's friends rallied around her, offering support and grounding her when the world felt overwhelming. Her closest friend Jasmine insisted on being by her side every step of the way. "You're more than that, Slap," Jasmine said one evening as they sat together, sipping lukewarm tea. "You're a person who loves fiercely and fights for what's right. Don't let the noise drown out your voice." Emma clung to those words, but doubt still crept in. What if this viral moment destroyed her instead of helping? What if the justice system crushed her hopes for change? One night, scrolling through the comments beneath the viral video, Emma saw a thread from a man who called himself Justice Seeker 77. His words caught her off guard. Everyone's talking about the SLAP, but no one's talking about Marcus. We need to remember his name, his story. This isn't just about one moment, it's about a broken system that took him from us. For the first time in weeks, Emma felt a flicker of hope. Maybe the viral moment wasn't just a viral moment. Maybe it could be a catalyst for something bigger, a way to honor Marcus, to bring light to shadows too long ignored. The road ahead was uncertain. The courtroom loomed, social media storms raged, and the personal wounds ran deep. But Emma knew one thing for sure. She would fight not just for herself, but for Marcus and for everyone whose voices had been silenced. Her SLAP was only the opening act in a much larger story. One about grief, justice, and the courage to demand change. The courtroom was packed, the air thick with anticipation and tension. Cameras lined the back wall, reporters whispered, and onlookers shuffled nervously in their seats. Emma sat quietly with Marcus Reed by her side, her lawyer and unwavering advocate. Today, her SLAP was no longer just a viral clip. It was the centerpiece of a legal battle that would test everything she believed in. Officer Daniels took the stand first, his expression guarded. He described the protest as chaotic and threatening, claiming Emma's SLAP was unprovoked and violent. His testimony was cold and clinical, focused on procedure and authority. To him, the law was black and white. The moment of contact was a breach of order, a moment of disrespect to a uniform. Then came Emma's turn. Her heart thundered as she took the oath and faced the jury. She spoke carefully, her voice steady but raw. "I didn't slap him because I hate police officers," she said, eyes glistening. "I slapped him because I needed him and everyone else to see the pain and the anger that was inside me. My brother was shot by the police. That pain doesn't just disappear. It lives in me every day." She recounted Marcus's story, his dreams, his kindness, and the night he was taken from her. She described the slow wheels of justice that refused to turn fast enough, the silence from the department and the community's grief that was met with suspicion rather than empathy. The courtroom murmured. Some faces softened, others remained skeptical. Outside the courthouse, the city was divided. Protests continued, some peaceful, others erupting into clashes. Social media exploded with opposing views, some hailing Emma as a symbol of resistance, others condemning her as a lawbreaker. Emma watched the unfolding chaos with a heavy heart. She knew her SLAP had ignited something far bigger than herself, a community forced to confront painful questions about race, justice, and trust. One afternoon, a local pastor invited Emma to speak at a community forum on police relations and healing. She hesitated but agreed. Standing before a room of strangers, some angry, some hopeful, Emma shared her story without judgment. "I'm not here to blame everyone or every officer," she said, "but I am here to say that when a system fails to protect us, when justice feels distant, anger grows. We need honest conversations, real accountability, and healing for everyone." The forum sparked dialogue, bridging gaps between community members and law enforcement representatives. Emma met officers willing to listen, who shared their own struggles navigating a difficult role. Slowly, the walls of mistrust began to crack, revealing the shared humanity beneath. Still, the courtroom loomed, a reminder that justice was both personal and systemic. Emma's slap had forced a spotlight on injustice, but it also demanded personal accountability. She wrestled with conflicting emotions, rage and remorse, defiance and vulnerability. The slap was her breaking point, but it was also a call to rise beyond the moment. In quiet moments, Emma reflected on the woman she wanted to become, a woman who could transform pain into purpose, anger into action. The viral moment that had once threatened to define her was now the spark for something more profound, a journey toward understanding, healing, and hope. The courtroom was silent, the weight of anticipation settling over everyone like a heavy fog. Emma sat poised yet fragile, her hands clasped tightly on her lap as the judge prepared to deliver the verdict. Outside, the city held its breath. Her case had become a symbol for many, a flashpoint in a larger struggle between community and authority. Emma's story had been heard, her grief, her anger, the complicated truth behind the slap. But justice wasn't about emotion. It was about law, and in the eyes of the court, her act was still an assault. The judge's voice broke through the silence, calm but resolute. "Ms. Harper, your actions during the protest violated the law. However, the court acknowledges the extraordinary circumstances surrounding your case. You will receive a sentence of probation, mandatory community service, and enrollment in a restorative justice program." Emma's breath hitched, relief and sorrow mingling. It was a judgment neither wholly condemning nor absolving. It left space for both accountability and compassion. As she left the courtroom, the media frenzy was relentless. Cameras flashed, microphones thrust forward, and voices clamored for soundbites. Emma remained silent, letting the noise wash over her. But beneath the chaos, something new had begun. Her participation in the restorative justice program introduced her to Officer Daniels, not as an adversary, but as a human being carrying his own burdens. Their first meetings were tense, a fragile dance of mistrust and reluctant understanding. Slowly, they shared stories. Daniel spoke of the pressures and dangers officers faced daily, of mistakes made under stress. Emma shared her pain and loss, the heavy weight of a brother's death that never stopped haunting her. Neither forgave easily, but a fragile respect took root. In the months that followed, Emma threw herself into community service, working alongside police and activists to bridge divides. She spoke at schools, forums, and gatherings telling her story, not as a victim, but as a catalyst for change. Her viral moment had exploded across the internet, but now it was becoming a symbol of something deeper, the possibility of healing, through empathy and dialogue. Social media, once a battleground of harsh words and polarized views, began to show signs of nuanced conversation. Emma's story encouraged people to see beyond headlines and hashtags to the complex humanity beneath. At home, Emma's family slowly began to heal, drawing strength from the connections she forged and the conversation she sparked. The slap that had once seemed like a reckless act of rage had transformed into a turning point, not just for Emma, but for a community grappling with pain and hope. And though the scars remained, Emma felt the first true stirrings of peace. It was a crisp autumn evening when Emma stood in front of a crowd gathered in the community center's modest auditorium. The walls were adorned with photos of past protests, neighborhood portraits, and messages of hope. This was not a courtroom or a protest line. It was a place of healing. She looked out at the faces before her, neighbors, police officers, activists, families, all drawn together by the shared desire to move beyond pain and anger. Emma's voice was steady but filled with emotion as she began. "When I slapped that officer, I didn't realize how far the ripples would spread. I thought it was just a moment of rage, a raw response to unbearable grief. But it became a symbol of what many people in this community feel every day, unheard, unseen, desperate for justice." She paused, letting her words sink in. "But today I want to talk about what happens after the headlines fade, after the viral videos stop trending. Healing isn't easy. It takes time, courage, and the willingness to face uncomfortable truths." Emma shared her journey, How the SLAP was a breaking point but also a beginning. How meeting Officer Daniels in the Restorative Justice Program challenged her assumptions. How the process of listening and understanding was messy and imperfect, but powerful. And Officer Daniels and I, she said, a faint smile touching her lips. We found a way to move from anger to dialogue. We still disagree, but we respect each other's humanity. That's where real change begins. The crowd was silent, many moved by her honesty. Emma saw nods, tears, and faces reflecting the complicated reality of a community seeking justice and reconciliation. Later, as people mingled and talked, Emma felt a quiet strength growing inside her. She knew the path ahead would not be without obstacles. There would be setbacks, hard conversations, and moments of doubt. But the SLAP, once a symbol of division, was now a symbol of possibility. Her story had transformed, not just in the eyes of the public, but in her own heart. As she stepped outside into the cool night, the city skyline shimmering in the distance, Emma took a deep breath. The viral moment that had threatened to define her had become the catalyst for healing, connection, and hope. She whispered Marcus's name to the stars above, a promise to carry his memory forward with courage and compassion. And for the first time in a long time, Emma felt whole.